The humid air of the city felt different on the last night of the 6th lunar month. It wasn't just the heat, it was a stillness, a peculiar silence that muffled the usual city noise. 20-year-old Ken had always dismissed his grandmother, annual hysteria. But tonight, even his modern, skeptical mind felt a prickle of unease. "Hurry, Ken. The gate opens at midnight. We must finish the offerings." Grandmother's voice was sharp with urgency as she arranged mountains of oranges, roast pork, and sweet cakes on a makeshift altar outside their apartment. Ken sighed, lighting the thick red candles. "Grandmother, it's just tradition, a lunar calendar date. Why this specific month? Why can't the ghosts visit in, say, the 3rd month?" Grandmother paused, her wrinkled hands hovering over a stack of neatly folded gold and silver paper. Her gaze was distant, fixed on the moonless sky. "It is not a matter of choice," she said. "It is bureaucracy. The Underworld, DU, is a kingdom run by King Yama and his 10 courts. Every year, for exactly 30 days, from the 1st day to the last day of the 7th month, the gates are opened. This is done for 2 reasons, compassion and control," she explained. "The Buddhist faith, which influences this festival, dictates that the forgotten spirits stay, uni, jiu, or wandering, unattached ghosts, deserve one chance to alleviate their suffering and receive offerings. But the Taoist side is about order. King Yama needs a break from the endless queue of the dead, and the souls need a mandated So, the officials in the Underworld unlock the gates, and all the wandering souls who have no family to worship them are released into our world to seek sustenance. This is why we call it Ghost Month." As the clocks ticked toward midnight, Grandmother gathered a thick pile of joss paper, or held banknotes. These weren't simple gold and silver squares for ancestors, but elaborate, printed currency marked with the face of the Jade Emperor. Ken began tossing the paper into a repurposed metal drum. The flames leaped, twisting the faux currency into ash. "Why burn all this money, Grandmother? Why don't they just use the food?" Grandmother watched the flames consume the notes with solemn focus. "The food is for their hunger here. The money is for their survival therein, the world they must return to. When they were released, they had to pay a fee to the Ghost Gate guards. And for the next 11 months, they need currency to buy what little comfort they can in the bureaucracy of the Underworld. If we don't burn it, they return empty-handed, becoming desperate, bitter, and angry. We burn paper money to show respect, to ease their suffering, and most importantly, to prevent them from becoming jealous and targeting the living." A chill ran down Ken's spine despite the roaring flames. He looked past the orange glow of the altar and into the shadows between the buildings. For the first time, the darkness seemed to pulse. "They are here now, Ken," Grandmother whispered, her voice low. "The veil is thinnest. Be careful where you walk. Do not step on any offerings. Do not kick random objects. They are all around us." For the next week, the city took on a somber, wary quality. Street-side operas and puppet shows sprang up on temporary stages loud. Dramatic performances meant to entertain the wild ghosts, ensuring they focused on the show and not on the onlookers. The front-row chairs were always left empty, reserved for the unseen audience. Ken noticed the change in the people around him. His usually brash neighborhood aunties were quiet. Drivers avoided small puddles of rainwater. Clothes were not hung outside overnight. One evening, Ken was walking home late, navigating a particularly dark alley. He felt an intense, sudden drop in temperature, as if a large air conditioning unit had blasted him. He turned his head sharply. In the momentary flicker of a distant streetlight, he saw Ita shimmering. Ita's distortion of a human shape, darker than the night, standing just behind a utility pole. The moment the light returned, it vanished, but the icy shock remained. He had seen a ghost. Grandmother was right. The sheer volume of souls on the loose meant that people were far more likely to perceive them, often just at the edge of sight, in moments of poor light or exhaustion. The next day, news spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. Uncle Wu, the old tailor who lived 2 doors, Down a man who had been frail but steady just last week had passed away quietly in his sleep. Grandmother shook her head slowly when she heard the news. It is the season of transition, akin. The old and the weak often pass in the 7th month. Their life force, their janku, is already low. When the gate opens, the yin energy surges into our world. The change in the atmospheric balance is often enough to tip the scale. They are not pulled maliciously, perhaps, but the world of the living loses its grip on them easily. When the dead are so numerous, the darkest superstition, the one that truly chilled Ken, manifested 2 weeks into the ghost month. A local news report broke. A 10-year-old boy, playing by the coastline where the river met the sea, had slipped and drowned in water that was barely waist-deep. The details were vague, but the conclusion was clear. No one saw him fall. He was suddenly submerged. Ken heard the whispers in the market, voices low and terrified. The Shu-Gyu watered ghosts have found their TSQ replacement victim. Grandmother confirmed the terrifying folklore. The water ghosts are the most desperate of the lost souls. Drowning is a violent, unnatural death. If a person dies in water, their spirit is bound to that place. The official bureaucracy of the Underworld will not allow them to be reincarnated until they have successfully lured and taken a new victim to replace themselves. They grab the ankles, they pull down the innocent, especially children who are easier targets. They are selfish and desperate for the chance to be reborn. That night, Grandmother performed a second, private set of offerings. She placed small, wet rice balls near the riverbank. These are for the Shregwe who were stuck here, the ones who have done the pulling. It is not an offering to make them happy, but an offering to remind them that compassion exists, and perhaps, with a belly full of rice, they will be less desperate to claim a life. As the month wore on, Ken stopped wearing his bright colors and avoided staying out after dusk. He understood now that the ghost month was not just about ghosts. It was a profound, public acknowledgement of the fragility of life and the immense power of death. The traditions were the living world's defense mechanism, a structured way to pay tribute, offer comfort, and maintain the necessary balance between the yin and the yang. On the 29th night, the last night of the ghost month, Grandma and Ken stood outside again, burning the final, large stack of paper currency. This time, the feeling was different. The stillness was leaving the air, replaced by a subtle, returning energy. Grandmother looked at the cooling ashes. They must return now. The gates are closing. The feast is over, and the time of maximum yin energy has passed. Now, the living world reasserts itself. Ken watched the smoke drift away. He didn't feel cold or scared anymore. He felt a quiet respect. He had survived the month, not by mocking the traditions, but by understanding the deep human need they fulfilled, to acknowledge the restless dead, to ease their path, and to ensure their desperation did not encroach upon the living. The ghosts were returning to the underworld, laden with the gifts of paper currency, appeased by the food, and contained by the firm, ritualistic closure of the gates. The world felt safer, heavier, more real. And Ken finally understood why his grandmother had taken the 7th month so seriously. It was how the living world earned its peace for the rest of the year. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this story interesting, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more tales from around the world. We'll see you in the next video. Stay curious and stay safe.